There was this one house that seemed empty, with its garden unkempt and messy, in Mitsugidai New Town, a relatively affluent suburb that was known as the Beverly Hills of Hanno, located in Hanno City in Saitama, Japan. One thing that the neighbors didn't know was that in this seemingly empty house in the local Beverly Hills, there was a man who seemingly harbored a grudge lasting for months against one particular family. What do you think happens when a social outcast, deserted by his own family, has a grudge against you and he lives just 60 meters away from you? On December 25th, 2022, Christmas Day in Japan, neighbors in Mitsugidai New Town saw a man chase a woman with a hammer. Calls were immediately made to a local police department, people saying that a person is being attacked with a hammer in their garden, and that there was a fire coming from that house. When the police arrived, they found two people collapsed in the garden, and their daughter collapsed in the porch. Identifying the bodies took some time because both their faces and bodies were severely beaten, indicating the anger that the perpetrator had toward the victims. The victims were eventually identified as 69-year-old American William Ross Bishop Jr., his wife, 68-year-old Izumi Morita, and their daughter, 32-year-old Sofiana Megumi Morita. Sofiana Megumi normally lived separately, but had come back home during the holiday seasons to visit her parents. The police experts believe that the crime took place in a span of just a few minutes. However, the police already had an idea on who the perpetrator could be because of his past altercations with the bishops. 15 hours later, Jun Saito, a 40-year-old unemployed man living just 60 meters away from the victims, was arrested. So normally, when a perpetrator of a violent crime is arrested, news crews would interview people who used to know the perpetrator, and they usually say things like, "He was always alone, awkward, and was quick to anger." You might be surprised that this might not be the case here. Jun was a school heartthrob growing up. People who knew him in school described him as, he was good at soccer, got good grades, and was very popular. There are even reports of him doing some modeling due to his height and good looks. The only dark moments he had during his school years was when he had to switch schools when he was in the 7th grade due to bullying. His former classmates said that it was during this time that Jun became withdrawn and started to avoid interacting with people. None of his classmates back then would expect that this once popular jock would end up living alone, deserted by his own family.
関係者によりますと、ビショップさんは
At around the age of 18, Jun's parents got divorced, with his father leaving the house. This was the last time that Jun saw his father. Jun then went on to live with his older sister and mother. After finishing high school, he then entered an art school, hoping to become a film director. During his short time as a film director, he won numerous awards, even going on to win funding at a film festival. However, when the filming for his hard-hitting social commentary movie called The Gift, when this film was completed, something seemed to have happened during the editing process. Jun suddenly disappeared, severing all contacts he had with his colleagues. He, however, promised, "I don't mean to ditch the project. I'll complete it, I'll promise." However, The Gift was never completed. 5 years later, unable to tolerate the violence coming from Jun anymore, both his mother and sister left the house. Jun now then started to live alone. The house was so quiet, some people thought that it was a vacant house. Then, 5 years later, the bishop moved into the neighborhood. Something weird started to happen since August of 2021. The bishops have contacted the police 6 times concerning repeated harassments. This includes their car being damaged, as well as their front gate being trashed. At one point, the damage to their red Volvo was so severe, the repairs cost them 1 million yen, or $7,500. The car still got damaged 2 more times thereafter. Seeing how persistent the stealthy harassment was, the bishops felt compelled to set up security cameras. No arrests had been made until January of 2022, when police officers who had been watching over the bishops arrested Jun, who was caught throwing rocks at the bishop's car. Jun was arrested for 2 other cases of harassment as well. However, he was not prosecuted for any of the 3 cases. A psychologist explains that cases of severe damage to property indicates the presence of strong grudge against the owner. Being arrested for such a crime may have caused Jun's grudge to increase. His motivation is assumed to be to exact his vengeance, and he didn't care too much about getting arrested. This analysis seems quite accurate, since several neighbors did witness the crime, and one person even confronted Jun with a wooden sword. Jun now insists on keeping his silence about his motivation. So it's all speculation as to why Jun targeted the bishop so persistently. Even an axe was confiscated from his home, showing how prepared he was. I've talked about it in this video as well, but having problematic neighbors is just the worst, because it's not like you can just move the next day. And some people are just really unreasonable. What is scary here is the lack of apparent motivation. I don't think the bishops were the only successful couple in an affluent neighborhood, so it can't just be jealousy. What made Jun fixate on them? This case is still new, and more information is coming out each day, but the Japanese public as a whole really wants to know more about Jun and what made him commit such horrible crimes. One thing that struck me is that the Saito family seemed to be on a wealthier side. Jun was able to go to an art school to study and then live alone in a house after kicking out his mother and sister. A violent person who doesn't have to work, sitting alone at home all day long, is a dynamite waiting to explode. What would you do if such a person lives in your neighborhood? What can you do? The father, who hasn't seen his son, Jun, for 22 years, although haven't shown his face to the camera, is the only family member of the Saito family who has spoken to the press, saying that he truly feels sorry, and that back when Jun was in high school, he was a very nice kid. This is a topic that is being discussed in Japan right now, so I will of course cover it, but videos like these get suppressed by YouTube. Research, filming, and editing take a lot of time. So if you thought that this video was informative, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. I'll update you if there is any new information. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in year 2023. This was your host, Dean Lahiri Ramirez from Japan, signing off.